Day. Last week, just to recap, because we're going to continue, this is part 2 of what we talked about last week. What we talked about last week was really, we're talking about 2 weeks ago already, was Parashat Bamidbar. We're talking about, and not Parashat Naso, we're talking about counting Am Yisrael. Like everyone in Am Yisrael is special to Kadosh Baruch Hu, everyone has a role to play, and everyone is really part of the whole thing. And even though Kadosh Baruch Hu knows the quality and the quantity of everything in the world, down to the cellular level, he takes time to count Am Yisrael one by one. One by one he counts Am Yisrael, and he makes them, because they're special to him. And so that's why I want to see tonight what that specialness means. Now this is an amazing parasha that there's so much to talk about. We could have talked about how Am Yisrael, they, the anava of Aharon Kohen. We could have talked when he and the waiting patiently to get his role to light the menorah. We could have talked about all of how Am Yisrael complained to Kadosh Baruch Hu about what they saw, and Kadosh Baruch Hu brought upon them first a small punishment to try to wake them up, and when they didn't do tshuva, he gave them take the meat, take whatever you want. And they literally ate themselves to death, and they literally buried themselves, ate themselves meat non-stop for a month until they buried themselves. But we want to try to look at something a little deeper, a theme that goes through the whole parashat. And so Bezat Hashem, we have a very interesting short shiur tonight, and everywhere where water is mentioned, it's a metaphor for Torah, so let's jump on in, the water's fine. So to start, I want to start off with the famous opening of the amazing Sefer, Mesilat Yesharim, from Harav Moshe Chaim Lutzato, who was Mikubal and Mamash Kodesh HaKodeshim, and even Rabbeinu Agra said that if he lived in the same generation as the Ramchal, he would pack up his entire Beit Midrash, walk on foot from Vilna to Italy to where the Ramchal was, and sit in his feet and learn his Torah. And so he is one of the most famous openings of any book in Judaism. And it opens Yisod HaChasidut V'Shoresh HaAvodah Temimah. Now if you notice in Hebrew, the Rashi Tevot are Yud Ke Vav Ke. Yisod HaChasidut V'Shoresh HaAvodah HaTemimah. And he says is that a person will clarify and prove to himself what is his chov in the world. Now what does the word chov mean? Chov, we can say it as a debt, we can say it as a certain responsibility, and we can say it as a purpose. And so the question is, why did the Ramchal write it like this? Why did he say chov? Why did he choose that words out of any of the other words that he could have chose? Why did he say that a person has to clarify it? Is it not clear? The person came to the world to do the Torah. So why does a person have to clarify it? He doesn't have to say, you have to prove to yourself that the Torah is the correct path, and then you have to do Torah, you have to learn Torah, you have to keep the Torah. But why do you have to clarify it? What does it mean to clarify it? And the answer, in short, that we're going to get throughout the shiur tonight, is that really everyone has to find out that their role in this world is two-part. They have a general role that every Jew has. They have to learn Torah, they have to keep Shabbat, they have to do the Torah, they have tefillin, they have to get married, they have to have children. But there's also a personal role, that every single Jew has a role to play. And not everyone can do the same thing. If you have a ship, you have the captain, you have people who are working on the deck, people who are cleaning, people working in the kitchen. You can't put the chef steering the boat, you can't put the steering the boat into the kitchen, it's not going to work. And so everyone has a role to play, and without it all coming together, there's going to be big problems. And I want to see that it's not just a logistical solution, it's much deeper than that. That there's actually spiritual hashpa'ah, spiritual influence when everyone does their correct role and is working together in that way. And so we can start to see through the parasha. The first thing we have in the parasha is that Moshe Rabbeinu is told by Kadosh Baruch Hu, speak to Aaron and tell him that when you light the menorah. Now, the Tanchuma and Rashi bring that what happened was Aaron was very upset. Aaron was looking at all the Nesiim coming, and he says, when is it going to be my turn? all of the Nisim brought something, all of the tribes brought something, except for Shevet Levi, and at their head, Aharon Kohen. He was the only one who didn't participate. He was there every day working in the Beit HaMikdash, in the Mishkan, but he never actually got to be the star of the day, as it were. Every Nasi that was there that day had a Yom Tov the same day. So Aharon missed out on that. And so Rashi brings the Tanchuma and says that Kodesh Baruch Hu says smile. He literally tells him, smile, Aharon, smile. Because your role is going to be bigger than theirs. Because you're going to get to light the menorah. And we know that according to the Kabbalah, the menorah was a way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought lots of spiritual plenty to the world. Lots of spiritual shefa was brought down through the menorah. In addition to that, the Me'am Loez brings, he says, one day there's going to be another Chanukah. There's going to be another dedication ceremony. And it's going to be only Shevet Levi, and that's going to be in the days of the Chashmonaim. That Shevet Levi is going to be rededicating the entire Beit HaMikdash after the war with the Greeks, and so that's something that you can look forward to, that your children are going to be facilitating this. Now, another thing, the next thing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says is, take the Leviim from amongst Bnei Yisrael, and the Leviim are given to Aharon and to his sons from amongst Bnei Yisrael to work in the service of Bnei Yisrael in Ohel Moed. So, Levi is given a special role, and you see there in the service of Bnei Yisrael in the Ohel Moed, that Levi is going to be the intermediaries to facilitate connection between Am Yisrael and the Beit HaMikdash. To make sure that the Beit HaMikdash is functioning, make sure that it's coming. The Kohanim are, of course, going to be working, actually doing the korbanot, actually doing all the sacrifices and the service there. But the Levi is going to be logistically making sure everything's running. They're going to be there making sure everything's running smoothly, guarding the Beit HaMikdash, making sure everything's good. And so what we can see from this is that Levi also takes a special role. Kodesh Baruch Hu says there's a special role for Levi, and therefore Levi is not going to be going to war. If we look at the end of Hilchot Shemitah in the Rambam brings that Shevet Levi didn't participate in wars, they didn't participate in business, their main role was to be this facilitator of Torah, this facilitator of Avodat Hashem, and so that was the role that they played. Now the next thing we have is that there are people that were Timeim Lenefesh Adam, that they were working in the Chevra Kadisha, they were working to help bury the deceased. And now we can, there's two things that are brought in the Midrash. That one, these were people who buried Nadav and Avihu, because they died at the beginning of this ceremony. Now we're at the end of the ceremony is when we're going to be seeing this story. And so they were doing that, or they were carrying the bones of Yosef HaSadiq, alav Shalom. That of course Yosef died many generations before in Egypt, and now when Am Yisrael left, they brought him out. And even though Moshe Rabbeinu made sure to bring Am Yisrael, Yosef out, now you have people who are carrying and taking care of his coffin, and these people come to Moshe Rabbeinu, and they say, look, we missed out on something very big here, and we want to be a part of this. We missed out on Korban Pesach. Korban Pesach, this is one of two mitzvot, aseh, two positive mitzvot, that if someone doesn't do that, he gets chayav karet. So this is a big deal. Brit Milah, Korban Pesach. And they're also connected. Because they say before Korban Pesach, someone has to have a Brit Milah. Someone who doesn't have a Brit Milah can't eat from the Korban Pesach even though they're a full-fledged Jew. So they either have to do, if so, someone who has Chas v'Shalom, he has two brothers who died before him from their Brit Milah, from during their Brit Milah ceremony, they died, and so he now can't get a Brit Milah. It's a sore for him to do Brit Milah, and so he can't eat from the Korban Pesach, and so he misses out also. Of course, he's not chayav because it's a sakana nefeshot. It's a danger to his life. But we see that this person misses out. It's not a full connection. And these people come, the Chevra Kadisha come to Am Yisrael and they say, look, we're here. We wanna do this. We want to be a part of this, but we can't because we were too much made. We're doing a mitzvah. We're caring about the dead. We're making sure they were buried correctly. We're making sure that Yosef HaTzadik was coming up, fulfilling the promise that we promised to Yosef HaTzadik, and we missed out on this. So Moshe Rabbeinu goes and says, okay, we're going to find a date. We're going to talk to Kodesh Baruch Hu, this is also an amazing point, just want to mention on the side, that Moshe Rabbeinu is the only Navi, the only prophet that can go to a Kadosh Baruch Hu and receive prophecy. All the other prophets, they have to make themselves a vessel to receive prophecy, and then they wait patiently until it comes. Moshe Rabbeinu is the only one who can call. All the other Navim are looking at the phone, waiting for it to ring. Moshe Rabbeinu is the only one who can pick up the phone and call the Kadosh Baruch Hu, hey, we got a problem down here, how do we solve it? And the problem here was that we have people coming, and they need, welcome, that we have people coming, and they need, they want to do Korban Pesach. And so now they have the opportunity to do something after. But we see from this that they had a role to play. That they were working the Chevra Kadisha, they were working with Yosef, the bones of Yosef HaTzadik. And so they had a role to play. And they missed out on something else because of their role. So Kodesh Baruch Hu cared for them, made sure that they got that opportunity. We see that Kodesh Baruch Hu always cares for people. If they want to do His will, that Kodesh Baruch Hu always finds a way to help them to do His will, whether it's living in Eretz Yisrael or anything else. He always gives them Sati de Shammaya to do that. And here too, they wanted to do Korban Pesach, and they missed out on it because they were doing mitzvot. And so Kodesh Baruch Hu said, you know what, you're doing good. Moshe Rabbeinu told them there's a Korban Pesach, another Korban Pesach in another month. And so that's another people who are playing roles. The next person on the Parashat I want to talk about is Yitro. Yitro, as everyone knows, was a Ger Tzedek. He converted to Judaism, and he was the father-in-law of Moshe Rabbeinu. And he says to Moshe Rabbeinu, I'm not going with you guys any further. I'm going to go back to my land, to my mother country, to convert. And so the question is, the Or HaChaim HaKadosh asks, why does it say to my land, to my mother, to my home, to my motherland, to la'artzi le'muladati, to the place where I was from and where I was born. So the Mechilta says that what he was going back to do was, he says, I'm going to go back and start converting people. Now, even though in Judaism we're not a proselytizing religion. We don't go out and try to convert people. That's a very unique thing in Judaism. But at that time we didn't have that tradition yet. That is to say, when did we stop proselytizing? When it became dangerous to do that. We go out and we proselytize, and the Goyim want to kill us, and so it's not good to make yourself known, hey, I'm Jewish, and not just I'm Jewish, I want you to be Jewish too. That's a good way, it's very dangerous. So that was one of the reasons that we didn't go out and proselytize. The other reason that we don't do proselytation is because there's another way. Goyim have a way to connect with the Kodesh Baruch Hu through the 7 mitzvot B'nai Noach. We're the only religion that says you don't have to be Jewish to connect with the Kodesh Baruch Hu. If you're a goy, then you can do that. Now, of course, if someone wants to be Jewish and they go out of their way to come to us and they say, I want to be Jewish, go out and proselytize. But at this time, we were going after Avraham Avinu. That Avraham Avinu, he was the first one to go out, and he was proselytizing. He was teaching people about Yichud Hashem, the unification of Hashem. That there's only one God. There's not 3 gods, or one God with 3 parts, or anything else. There's no Son, there's no Father, there's no Holy Spirit. It's all a bunch of shtuyot. There's one God. And so that's what Avraham Avinu was teaching, and that's what Yitro said. He's going to go back to Midian and do that. So the Or HaChaim HaKadosh says he's going to go back to his country. If he's not successful in his country, he's going to get more localized to the place where he was born and the people he's a little closer with that he grew up with, and try to work on them first. So that's why it says it, Artzi Umuladati, that he was working on 2 groups of people. Now, what happens? Am Yisrael, as we know, they started to complain, as we mentioned, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings a early punishment. He brings a fire. A fire in those days was very scary. You didn't have the firefighters that could come and put it out very easily. It was very dangerous, very scary. And so Moshe Rabbeinu comes and he says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I can't do this all by myself. This is very difficult, and I really need some help here. So Moshe Rabbeinu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, don't worry. You're going to have 70 elders that they're also going to be Nevi'im. They're also going to be prophets, and they're going to come up. And they're going to be with you, and they're going to be part of that. Now, there's something that's very interesting. That Moshe went out to the people and gathered 70 men from the elders of the nation, and stood them around the Olam, brought everyone around. Hashem came down and spoke to Moshe, and separated from him the ruach, the spirit that was upon him, and gave it to the 70 elders. And the Ruach, the spirit that was on Moshe Rabbeinu, rested on the rest of the elders, and they started to receive prophecy through Moshe Rabbeinu. Now, to explain what it's like a flame. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't actually take away parts of his prophecy, his connection with the Kodesh Baruch Hu, and give it to other people. He ignited a flame. So if I take a candle and I light a bunch of other candles, even if I light 70 candles, my first candle that I have didn't lose any of its light. It's still the same flame. But now I have 70 other flames that have been lit from this one candle. And that's the same idea here. That the Kodesh Baruch Hu took from Moshe Rabbeinu and he lit the other 70 elders, but they received through Moshe Rabbeinu. And so the prophecy was less, and Moshe Rabbeinu didn't lose out. But now we have more people taking roles, taking responsibility in Am Yisrael. And the last people that I want to talk about were two men that stayed behind in the camp, and one was named Eldad, and the second was named Medad. And the Spirit rested upon them, the Ruach rested upon them, and they received prophecy in the camp. And someone ran and told Moshe that Eldad and Medad are receiving prophecy in the camp. And what's interesting about that, Moshe says, bring them down. We need to add them to our 70 elders. Now Eldad and Medad are very, very, very interesting figures. Eldad and Medad, there's conflicting stories on what's their heritage. Now there's a midrash, and the Midrash Tanchuma says that Eldad is from Shevet Ephraim and Medad is from Shevet Binyamin. But we have from Rav Amram Gaon that brings a testimony that someone came to, he was in Iraq, that someone came to Iraq by the name of Rav Hillel Me'eretz Yisrael, and he said, I saw the gravestone of Eldad and Medad, and it's written on it, Eldad and Medad, Achei Aharon, the brothers of Aharon, and there's a machloket, Me'av v'lo Me'aim, or Me'aim v'lo Me'av. So either they were the sons of Yocheved, or they were the sons of Amram. So, first of all, I started to think about this. How can you have two things that are so contradictory? Normally when we have things contradictory, especially in Midrashim, we try to put them together, see how we can fit this together. So how could it be that from Shevet Binyamin, or from Shevet Binyamin or Ephraim, each one from one, or from Shevet Levi? And then I found the Rosh, and the Rosh said, no, this is one opinion and this is the other opinion. This is two contradicting opinions, there's no way to settle them. And I thought, well, let's say this. If they're the sons of Yocheved, then it's possible that they're also Achei Aharon, because they're the sons of Yocheved, and could be one from Ephraim and one from Binyamin. So what can we say? We know that Amram divorced Yocheved when the Egyptians made their Gezerah on Am Yisrael. And so Yocheved could have been taken as a wife by someone from Shevet Ephraim. And then she gave birth to Eldad. And then he could have divorced her. And then she was taken wife by someone from Binyamin. And she took and she gave birth to Medad. And then she got divorced again, poor girl. And then she got taken back by Amram, because we know Miriam told him that you're worse than Paro. Dad, you're worse than Paro. Why are you worse than Paro? Because Paro, he said to kill all the sons. And you're saying to kill the sons and the daughters. If someone's not doing Priya, they're losing out on sons and daughters. And so, what do we have from there? Here you go. All of them are the sons of Yocheved, and also from Amram. So you say, how does Amram bring his Gurusha back? How does Amram bring a divorcee back if she is already been with someone? Because we know they also kept the Torah. Well, we know that they kept the Torah. The Avot kept the Torah not as a chova, not that it was put on them like it's put on us. They kept it more as a tradition. They said this is the correct way to live. But if there's something that needs to be done that's outside the Torah, then we can do that. So, and the proof is from Amram himself, because Amram was married to Yocheved, who was his aunt. And that's, of course, a forbidden relationship from the Torah. And so you can say that's another proof that the Torah is true, because we would never ever say that, someone would never write a story about themselves. If Chas v'Shalom Moshe Rabbeinu wrote the Torah, we would never write a story about himself that he came from a forbidden relationship. So the Torah has to come from a Kodesh Baruch Hu. And one of the many reasons that the Torah is true, we've said many times. Now, we have Eldad and Medad. We understand, okay, so we're going to say that they're the sons of Yocheved. So they learned all their Torah, and now they're going to be part of the 70 elders. What happened? As it's written in the Midrash that they took drawing to see who was going to be 70 elders. Because if you do the math, you need 70. You have 12 tribes. If you have 70 elders, you don't have a round number of people. If you do 5, you get to 60. If you do 6, you get to 72. So what Moshe Rabbeinu did, he gathered all the elders, anyone who was fitting to be. He wrote on the notes, that you have Zaken, Shivim Zakenim, elder, or it was just a blank one. Now, who was there? Also Eldad and Medad were there. There's two contradicting midrashim. One says they were there, they took petakim, they put it in their pocket and they left. What Gemara are you guys learning in yeshiva? Beitzah. So they went back to the camp, they started learning the Masechet Beitzah, they were doing some really serious shtagging until came on them this Ruach Nivuah, and then they started doing Nivuah, and it came out, and then they checked their notes and said that they were part of the 70 elders. There's another midrash I saw Me'am Loez that says they didn't even go. They were invited, they just didn't even go. Who are we? We're not going to be. It was all from anava, from humility. They didn't want to be a part of this group. They didn't want to be anything. And we see that someone who is anav, someone who's humble, makes themselves low, Kadosh Baruch Hu raises them up. No matter how hard they try to run away from honor, Kadosh Baruch Hu brings it to them. And we see that in another metaphor that the Torah is related to water. That water only gathers in the lowest place. And so someone who makes himself low, makes himself humble, then the water that is the Torah gathers in them. And when someone has the water of the Torah gathering in them, the Kadosh Baruch Hu naturally raises them up. Naturally raises them up. And so the same thing is here. Eldad and Medad, they made themselves small, they made themselves humble, and what happened was the Kadosh Baruch Hu raised them up to the highest levels to be leaders in Am Yisrael. And not just that, they were higher than all the rest of the elders. Because the rest of the elders, as we said, they had part of a Kadosh Baruch Hu who gave their nevuah from Moshe Rabbeinu. So it was through Moshe Rabbeinu. But Eldad and Medad received it from themselves. They were able to get the nevuah through themselves. Now, like we said, they were higher, and their nevuah was stronger. There was more lasting. They lived the longest. They were the only two from the elders that went into Eretz Yisrael. All of the rest of the elders didn't make it to Eretz Yisrael. They died with Moshe Rabbeinu in the desert. They entered the Eretz Yisrael, they became Shoftim in Eretz Yisrael, and so they were part of Yehoshua. When Yehoshua divided the land, they were part of that, they were leading their tribes. They were the leaders of their tribes at that point, of Ephraim and Benjamin. So, where does that leave us? How many different roles, how many different people have we gone over now that played a different role? We have Aharon lighting the menorah. We have the Leviim working in the outside of the Mishkan, carrying the parts of the Mishkan, working the outside of the Mishkan. We have the people who are working the Chevra de Kedisha, and they were carrying the bones of Yosef. We have Yitro, who's going to go back and he's going to start converting people who are not yet Jewish. We have Moshe Rabbeinu bringing together the 70 elders, and we have Eldad and Medad that also played a role, also as the leaders of their tribe, and also as Nevi'im. And so, what do we see from this? That everyone has an individual purpose to play in this world. Kadosh Baruch Hu does not expect the same thing from every single person. And that's why if we go back to the Mesilat Yesharim, that's why he says that someone has to clarify their role, has to clarify, because you have an individual role to play. And so you have to clarify what that individual role is. So how do we clarify? That's going to be the next question. So first of all, when we come together and everyone does their part, we can not just make a connection and logistically everything works well, but we also start bringing down shefa from Shamayim that Kadosh Baruch Hu brings through this connection, shefa. And what do we have? Yisachar and Zevulun. Everyone knows that Yisachar and Zevulun, two tribes that work together. Zevulun says, we're going to go out on ships, we're going to do work, we're going to do trade on the water, and Yisachar, you guys stay here, you guys are going to be Avrachim, learning Torah, we're going to give you guys money, and half of our profits are going to go to you, and half of your spiritual profits of the Torah are going to go to us. Good deal, right? So, we can see that again, okay. They were working together, they were trading Torah, they were trading Parashat, Now, the Zohar Kadosh says it was even bigger than that. Now, everyone knows that we have 10 sefirot. Keter, Chochma, Bina, Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yisod, Malchut. And so the Zohar Kadosh says that when Issachar and Zevulun were working together, they were making a connection between two of the sefirot called Malchut and Tiferet. Now, why is this connection between Malchut and Tiferet so important? Because if we look, Tiferet is right in the middle, and Malchut is right at the end. So Tiferet is really gathering together all of the middle ones. We have the three top ones, Keter, Bina, Keter, Chochma, Bina. And then all the middle ones are brought together through Tiferet, and then we have Malchut in the end. So what happens is that Tiferet actually goes up to Chochma and brings down all of the plenty and all of the shefa and all of the parnasah and all of the spiritual and physical plenty of the world, brings it down, and is the transfer between Chochmah and Malchut. So when you have connection between Tiferet and Malchut, you're bringing down a lot of shefa. And there's people who do kavanot in their tefillah that really deserve to be here, and we're going to send them back into the world, and he's going to be a leader for this generation. So how do we know? We said a few things. I have a very strong connection to a certain mitzvah. I have a very strong connection to doing something. I have a friend that I've told this story a few times, but he said, I once asked him, he was learning an MBA, he was a master's in business. And I said, well, why don't you go to yeshiva Abi Avrech? You're such a smart guy. Really, it's mamash haval, it's a much waste of your amazing brain to be learning in a university. And he said, I was in yeshiva, I tried it, I'm not the type of guy that can sit and learn 18 hours a day. That's just not me. I said, okay, so what do you want to do with your MBA? The next logical question. He says, I want to build yeshivot. Now normally when you ask somebody, what do you want to do with your MBA? He says, I want to be an accountant, I want to be an executive, I want to be a salesman, I want to be in marketing. This is very pure hashkafa here. This is very pure worldview that he says, my goal is to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu with the money I'm going to make. What I'm going to do is build yeshivot. How am I going to do that? That's something else. That's a different question. But what is my goal? Why am I learning in university? Because I'm going to use this degree to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And so we can see that there, every yeshiva you see, this is the Beit Midrash of so and so, Ploni Almoni from New York or from LA. That there's people who are giving their money. They're working very hard and they're giving their money to yeshivot so that you guys can all learn in yeshiva. Or they're doing all sorts of things, working the Chevra Kadisha as we've seen, or they're working as shochatim, they're working in kosher slaughter, they're doing things that are not necessarily learning Torah, but they're things that we as Am Yisrael need. And so they're fulfilling these roles. And so sometimes a person has a certain connection to a certain mitzvah, or a certain draw to do something, and you can't explain it. I don't know why. I have another friend, he was doing lots of different things, he didn't know what he wanted to do, and all of a sudden, he was lit up on kiruv. He wanted to do kiruv, okay, but he wasn't learning in yeshiva. He wasn't like learning to be a rabbi. So he was like, but I need to do kiruv. So how does he do it? He starts building a website, and B'ezrat Hashem, it's going to launch soon. And it's going to be an amazing thing. But he said he got this strong connection to what he really wants to do, and then what he really wanted to do was to do that. To do kiruv, to bring Yehudim, to bring Jews back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So how does he do it? Well, there's a lack of resources on the internet, and there's a lot of confusion on the internet. People are going to the internet and finding all sorts of different things that are, at the best case, not true. Well, there is good stuff. I don't want to say it's all bad. But they're finding things that are either not true, or even worse, it's actual kifira. And you have a guy with a beard to here and a hat like this, and he's telling you things that are completely against the Torah. And so he's like, people need to be careful of this. So he's writing all sorts of guides, and he's going to make shiurim. It's really mamash. He should have lots of hatzlacha b'ezrat Hashem. But he found that connection to what he needs to be doing. He felt what he needs to be doing. That's his part of Am Yisrael. So what do we want to take away from this? Everyone needs to start doing what their role is, start thinking about what their role is. And that's what, if we go back to Mesilat Yesharim, that's what Rabbeinu Ramchal says. Think about what your chov in this world is. Think about what your responsibility. Why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu send you here? What do you have to do? You know, maybe you're going to be an avrech and you've been learning all day. Maybe you're supposed to write books. Maybe you're supposed to give shiurim. Maybe you're supposed to raise money for yeshivot. Maybe you're supposed to be a shochet or a moel or all sorts of different roles that Am Yisrael needs. And so how do we figure, and how do we know that? We said, okay, you have certain things that you can feel. I love learning Torah. I'm built to learn Torah 18 hours a day, B'ezrat Hashem. I'm built to be a shochet. I don't mind seeing blood. I can deal with it. There's a lot of other things that are disgusting as being a shochet. I've done a few shechitot in my day. It's kind of gross, but there's people who are really, they don't care. They got it. There's people, I'm built to sit in an office all day. And of course, it's something that's kosher. They're not stealing. There's not pritzut. It's not men and women together. And I'm built to do that and make as much money as possible. And I'm just going to give everything I can to yeshivot. I'm going to make sure my family has what they need, not take more than what I need. And the rest is going to yeshivot. Going to go to kollalim. Going to go to rabbanim. Going to go to the people who are also part of Am Yisrael. So that's all feeling. How do I know that feeling is correct? We also learn that from the Parashat. That the Parashat says, according to Hashem they traveled, and according to Hashem they camped. And so what do we have to do? We have to say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what do you want from me? What do you need me to do? Guide me. How do we do that? We pray. The first thing we can do is we're going to pray to HaKadosh Baruch Hu for this guidance. We're going to pray to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, give us guidance. And the second thing we have to do is we have to ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I don't know, I'm sure you guys have heard this, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu has mamash malachim, mamash shlichim, he has emissaries in this world. If you want to talk to the ambassadors of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, they're all around you, the Rabbanim. Our Rabbanim, whether it's your Rosh Hashiva, whether it's, we have amazing Rabbanim, we're lucky enough to live in Eretz Yisrael, in Yerushalayim, Yer HaKodesh, Tibanei V'Tiponen, B'Mar B'Meinu, that we have the best Rabbanim in the world right here. So we can go out and we can ask them questions, Harav, and don't just ask them what's mutar or asur and the halakha. Can I eat this or should I stay away from this? You can ask them all sorts of questions on hashkafa. Who's the right woman to marry? How do I go about shidduchim? Where should I go work? All these things you have to be talking with a Rav constantly. Where should I live? All these things you have to be talking with a Rav constantly. And a Rav will give you guidance through Ruach HaKodesh. A lot of our Rabbanim, we don't even know this, have Ruach HaKodesh. Rav Baruch Shraga, that doesn't live here, but he teaches right upstairs, has Ruach HaKodesh. And I once went to one of his sons. I was lucky enough to sit with his sons in the Beit Hora'ah, and he would complain a little bit and say, people come to me and they ask me questions, and I can't tell them what I think, because they really don't care what I think. They want to know what my dad thinks, because my dad's one of the biggest rabbis in our generation. So even if I have like a little disagreeing opinion, I have to tell them what my dad says. And so once I had a question that wasn't mutar asur, it was mamash, it was a hashkafa, it was something that was very important, connected to my family, could have many ramifications in my life. So I went to him, and I said, forgive me, Arav, but you once told me that you can always give the pasak according to what your dad says. So, tell me, what would your dad say about this question? And he says, I think you should turn left. But this question is a big question, lots of life ramifications. You should wait and ask my dad, because this question needs Ruach HaKodesh. That's what he said to me. This question needs Ruach HaKodesh. I went and asked his father as soon as I was able to get hold of him, the Moreno Arav. And he said, remember, he told me to turn left. I asked the Rav, he said, you should turn right. He said the exact opposite of what his son told me. Not that the son was wrong, let's not give a perfectly good answer. But it was a big question and it needed Ruach HaKodesh. A lot of the Rabbanim that we have today have Ruach HaKodesh and we don't even know it. That's not just the only thing. I have other stories I could tell about Rav Shaga. All day I could tell stories about Rav Shaga. I've sometimes asked the questions and I didn't give him information, not because I was trying to withhold it. I just didn't think of it at the time. And he came back and he had the information. Like names of people that I didn't tell him he knew. Some things that are mamash scary. And he has stories that people have come to him in dreams. He once said that a shochet, talking about a shechita a lot today. He once said that there was a shochet that was checking his knife with his tongue. And of course, it's written in the Gemara that there was a hacham that did that. And so, but today it says we don't do that. We don't do that. The shochet is pasul. And one of the shochatim, one of the big shochatim of the last generation that I'm friends with his grandson, he came to him in a dream and said, "Why did you cancel this shochet? Cancel culture. Why did you cancel this shochet?" He said, "Well, he's doing with his checking with his tongue." And the Rav told him, the shochet told him in the dream, we already passed away. Back in our day, we used to check with our tongues. There were people who checked with their tongues. It's totally kasher. And so now he woke up and he was a little, okay, let's recheck the sugya. So he went to the same grandson who's still alive, Shichye, and he asked him, he said, "I saw your grandfather in a dream, and he said that back in his day, there were shochatim that checked with their knives." He says, "Why do you say in the third person? He would check his knife with his tongue." And so he came back and he said that the shochet is actually kasher, and that this was something that is legitimate. So you have people like this that you can ask them, "Rav, I feel like I need to be doing kiruv. I feel like I need to be going out to Am Yisrael, to places where even they're the most farthest away from the Torah, and I want to bring them back." And we'll say, "Okay, this is what you need to do." I went to another Rav, Shlomo Katzin Shichye. I told him I want to. He said, "What do you want to do with your life?" I said, "I want to build a yeshiva and a kollel, and I want to send rabbanim to chutz la'aretz and to all different places, ba'aretz and chutz la'aretz, and they're going to do kiruv and bring people back." And he said, "Hold your horses. Tone it down a bit, okay?" And he said, "Do that, but first sit your butt in the yeshiva, sit your butt in kollel, and just learn as much Torah as possible." That's what you need to do right now. Right now, your task, learn as much Torah as possible. We'll revisited this again in a few years. Right now, what you need to do is learn Torah. And so, maybe someone is on their way to do something big, Bezrat Hashem, but before they get there, they have to prepare themselves. It's just like someone who goes out to a shidduch. Before he goes out to a shidduch, he needs to think, what do I want? I want a woman who's humble. I want a woman who's modest. And if he's going to do that, maybe I should try to be more humble. Maybe I should try to be more of a tzaddik, so I can be meriting that. So Bezrat Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will guide us and always bring us to a full realization of how we're going to connect with Him, how we're going to bring others to connect with Him, and we're Bezrat Hashem together going to help bring the coming of our Redeemer, Mashiach Tzidkenu, B'mera B'yameinu, Amen V'Amen.
Amen.
Chazak